So when I realized that I was ready for a rebrand from my soul, I understood that I didn't need any new logos or colors or visuals. What I needed was a new foundation. And what I discovered that was one of the reasons why I started to feel that disconnect, that misalignment, that frustration, that exhaustion from the brand that I had built is that my soul was craving to be seen exactly for who I was, not just for my skills. Hello, friend. Welcome back to the Awakened Entrepreneur Show. I am so excited for today's episode because I'm going to be talking about what does it mean to rebrand from your soul. And I'm saying this because I've been in this space for almost 4 years, and I've actually never rebranded until very recently. And it had nothing to do with how my brand looked aesthetically, like visually, nothing to do with my colors, with my fonts. It was more about values, the beliefs, point of view. And in my 4 years of experience, I have seen so many creators and entrepreneurs rebranding literally every 6 months because they feel like their brand doesn't stick. And that is because most likely their brand is not aligned with their soul. Let's emphasize on what rebranding really is. Most people will define rebranding as having new visuals, new fonts, new tagline, which is true. That is part of your brand. And if you're rebranding, you might want to change that. But that will never solve the main problem of misalignment, which is a problem that I see happening all across the board. People creating brands and businesses based on what they see that's sticking for others, what's trending, or even what they think their brand should look like instead of feeling it. And most of the times they end up outsourcing this rebranding to a designer before doing the inner work. And I've talked about doing the inner work so many times because it's so important as entrepreneurs, and not only as entrepreneurs, as humans. So if you're curious about it, I do have an episode that is all about doing the inner work. I'm going to make sure to link it in the show notes so that you can go listen to it or watch it after you finish this one. But the truth is that if you don't know who you are, no design in the world will make your brand feel right. And I know this because, as always, I've experienced it, and I don't share anything that I haven't properly experienced or lived or a lesson that I have learned. So, this podcast is all about storytelling because I love sharing my stories. I love sharing the stories of other fellow entrepreneurs. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I started my brand as an Instagram coach. And I had a very, very clear visual identity that I actually stuck through for almost these 4 years. And you could have said that my brand looked successful on the outside. So I was launching courses, successful courses. I was growing followers. I was creating a ton of content and sales were coming. And to be fair, it did feel good at the beginning. I would say the first year, I did feel aligned, but then I just started to feel a disconnect from the brand that I was building. Also a loss of identity. I wasn't sure of what identity I had to portray. And that just led to exhaustion and a lot of confusion about what I was building. So if you are going through a phase like that where you've built something, but you feel like you don't identify with that brand or that persona that you've built anymore, it's fine. We all go through that. But before thinking about, oh, maybe it's just my visuals, maybe I need to create better aesthetic content, before doing that, you have to do the inner work. For me, the inner work started after a very, very harsh breakup. And that led me through a path of self-discovery, personal growth, and also spiritual growth. But it wasn't really until I came to Bali and I reconnected with God and had my spiritual awakening that this spiritual awakening became the true starting point of my rebrand. It was about a shift in my identity and clarity in who I was becoming. But all of this wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have done the inner work that I had been doing for the previous 2.5 years. So when I realized that I was ready for a rebrand from my soul, I understood that I didn't need any new logos or colors or visuals. What I needed was a new foundation. And what I discovered that was one of the reasons why I started to feel that disconnect, that misalignment, that frustration, that exhaustion from the brand that I had built is that my soul was craving to be seen exactly for who I was, not just for my skills. And I talked about this in the previous episode, but most creators nowadays start building their brands based on their skills, their expertise, and they become educators, which there's nothing wrong with becoming online educators. But the problem is that our souls are multi-dimensional. We're multi-passionate. So yes, we have a specific skill that we feel confident on, but there's so many more layers to who we are. And it gets to a point where we want to be able to share all of these other layers to connect deeper. And this is also a form of education, maybe not in the traditional way where you teach strategies, tactics, frameworks, but where you teach from the soul, from your lived experiences, from your mistakes, from your humanity. So yes, most creators focus on just educating, but that tends to lead to a feeling of disconnect and exhaustion and sometimes even numbness. So when I realized that I was ready for a rebrand from my soul, the first thing I did was not to look at, okay, I need to change my entire branding and my logos and my website. I still have like an old website. I barely use my website anymore. I didn't bother to change my branding on Instagram. To be honest, I just started using the Instagram fonts and just black and white color for now because I didn't want to complicate my life. The true rebranding came from the messaging that I was sharing. It came from exploring my new beliefs, from sharing my values as a person, from my multi-dimensional identity. So that's when I started bringing all of these elements or layers of who I was, like my new faith and my points of views around faith and religion and my queerness and also my travels because it's part of who I am and my emotional healing journey. The mindset shifts that I had to take in order to get to where I am and the mindset lessons that I'm still learning and incorporating storytelling and even nervous system work, which is something that I've gotten really obsessed with lately because I've seen the power behind it, right? So all of these things that in the past, when I was an Instagram coach, they wouldn't have like fit that brand that I had built. Now, with this rebrand that came from my soul, I feel free to talk about this. And one of the things that I do want to point out is that when you rebrand from your soul, the natural course of things is that you're going to repel a lot of people because when you talk about your beliefs, for example, not everyone will share the same beliefs as you. And if they don't have like a strong emotional and mental foundation, you're probably going to trigger things on them that are going to make them not dislike you, but not agree with what you're saying. And they're probably going to end up leaving your community, which is completely fine. Or when you talk about your identity, again, there's going to be things that will trigger other people. So I always see it as a natural selection process. So your natural path is to evolve and to grow and to be able to share all these things with your community. And there's people that will go away, which is fine. Like, it's a free world and we shouldn't take anything personal. There's people that will stay because they did connect to your soul. And there's new people that are going to join you because of this new multidimensionality that you're showing to the world. And one of the things that I realized or understood is that bringing all of these things into my brand didn't mean that I was throwing away my marketing knowledge. I just gave it context and depth. So again, if you want to bring other elements of who you are to this niche that you've built or this niche brand that you've built, it doesn't mean that you have to throw away that expertise or those skills that are part of who you are. And they're part of the reason why you've also been able to monetize your brand, right? But it will give it context and depth. And that is what people are really looking for. So the way that I see that my brand evolved was from teaching content to embodying my truth. And there's this that stuck to me when I was doing some brainstorming, and it's that I am truth in motion. I've started sharing and embodying my truth consistently in motion. So I want you to embody that as well. Embody your truth in motion without any fears of what people will say or if people will leave your community or if sales will drop. When you are embodying your truth, when you're fully in alignment, you don't need to worry about anything because the right people will come, sales will happen, and it will be like a natural flow state and we should all be living in. And for me, that's exactly what changed. I started attracting aligned clients that resonated with all of these parts of who I am. So I didn't have to hide myself anymore. New brand deals that wanted to partner with me again for my values, not just for my skills or my expertise. And new partnership collaborations to speak at events, to be interviewed in new podcasts that in the past I would have never been invited to. And all of these beautiful opportunities and synchronicities that happened when I really opened up and I just started letting my soul guide this journey and the rebrand. One of the other things that I've really truly enjoyed is that content became like a channel. Content became channeled, not scheduled. This means that I stopped planning my content in advance, and now I get divine downloads from God, or if you don't believe in God, from higher power, universe, whatever. But I get these divine downloads of ideas, and I feel they come from my soul, and I need to share them. So I do have a system with ChatGPT where I actually built this whole system, and I will literally tell the idea that I just got with a voice conversation, because I don't type with ChatGPT anymore, because I don't know if I'm lazy or just want to be more efficient, but I just talk to ChatGPT. And with this system, what ChatGPT does is that it creates an entire outline, a script, a caption, using my voice, using my story, using everything it knows about me. And so I get an idea channel, then I share with ChatGPT, and I literally record the video or create the post as soon as possible. And this is beautiful. It's what I call intuitive content creation, because I don't need to plan anymore. I don't need to worry about where the next idea is going to come. Now that I'm in full alignment with who I am and creating from my soul, ideas keep coming all the time. There's an overflow of ideas, and I wish that I had more time to share everything that I want to share with my community. And I do believe that if you plan content in advance and you schedule it, it loses that magnetism, right? For me, when I just get an idea and I post it right away, the energy that it comes out with is completely different. And I know that my audience can feel it. And I know that's why now that I've been posting content around God and spirituality and religion and all of these other things, it's performing so well, given the fact that my account was Instagram tips for so many years. It's performing really well because it's coming with this energy. It's magnetic and people can feel that. The other beautiful thing about this is that now offers feel like an extension of my evolution. So when you become a multi-dimensional, multi-passionate creator and you rebrand from your soul, you can have offers about all of these different elements. So in my case, I still help entrepreneurs with their business. So I have a business offer. But at the moment where I decide to create maybe a new offer or a product that is more about spirituality, I know people will resonate with that as well, because that's what part of the things that I've been sharing. And if one day I decided to create something around travel, I know that it will resonate with people as well. So that's the beauty of it. Like, offers become extensions of your evolution, and they don't limit you to just one thing. And also, I feel that my presence carries more weight than my niche ever did. And I kid you not, the amount of people that have reached out to me thanking me for the new content that I'm creating, because it's giving them motivation and it's empowered them. And this is something that I wouldn't have achieved before just with Instagram tips. Yes, people were grateful for my Instagram tips. It helped them as well. But now I feel like I'm helping people in a much deeper and meaningful and powerful way. So what I really want to say is that I see so many entrepreneurs and creators rebranding all the time. They rebrand too early from fear or external pressure. Again, because they see that Jackie rebranded and her content looks more aesthetic and it's getting more views or engagement. So they think that that is the solution to their low engagement or to that feeling of being stuck. Or but in reality, what's happening is that they don't rebrand deep enough. They're only rebranding the surface level, what I mentioned before. Oh, I'm going to change my visuals. I'm going to change my logo, my colors. And it doesn't work like that. Your brand is not the content you create. Your brand is not what you sell. It's who you are when you stop performing. So if you take away something from everything I just said, I want it to be this thing. A soul-aligned brand is not about perfection. It's about resonance. Rebranding from the soul means letting go of who you think you should be and revealing who you truly are. Once again, friend, thank you so much for staying until the end. If you learned something new, don't forget to rate this episode and my podcast in your favorite podcast platform. If you think this podcast is worth of a 5-star, please go ahead. It would really help me spread this message and fulfill my mission of helping 1 million entrepreneurs awaken to their fullest potential. And if you're in YouTube, please share in the comments what was your biggest breakthrough after listening to this. Are you ready to rebrand? Give those thumbs up, share this with a friend, and I'll see you next week with another episode. Bye.